I'd like to call to order the August 13th, 2025 meeting of the Committee on Audit, Finance and Budget. Georgette, would you please call the roll?
Director Lee?
Here.
Director Eady?
Here.
Director Jakes?
Here.
Chairman Barclay?
Here.
Director Raquel?
Present.
Director Jakes, you do have a quorum with 5 members present.
It was brought to our attention in preparation for today's meeting that Director Nima Jha would be unable to attend in person due to a travel obligation in connection with her employment. May I have a motion that she be permitted to participate in this meeting remotely?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that Director Nima Jha be permitted to participate in this meeting remotely due to a conflict with work. We will take a roll call vote. Director Raquel?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Eady?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Our next, I'm sorry.
Director Jha, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Next order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of July 9th, 2025. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that the minutes from the Finance, Audit and Budget meeting from July 9th, 2025 be approved. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Raquel?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Abstain.
Director Eady?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Jha?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Tom McComb.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, directors.
Good morning, Tom.
Morning.
Morning. I am here to walk you through the financial results through the month of June. So give me a moment to pull up that presentation. Share. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the results here for the month of June and then year to date through June. June is a 6-month mark through the fiscal year. So you'll see where we're at halfway through the year, looking at the year to date results. So starting with system generated revenue, what you can see here, Fair and Pass is coming slightly under budget for the month, a little bit better than where we were last year. So we are still seeing growth, just not quite as quickly as we had anticipated in the budget. We have seen some numbers from July. We do see a little bit of a bounce back there in July. So that was good to see. You'll see those final results next month. On the non-fare box revenue side of things, 2.2 million positive to budget. So good results there, continuing those positive investment returns. So total system generated revenue for the month, $1 million better than budget, 2 million ahead of where we were last year. We roll that into the year-to-date numbers here. You can see fare and passes coming in slightly below budget, but again, ahead of where we were last year. Non-fare box revenue, both ahead of budget and ahead of where we were last year. So balancing that out, $7.8 million positive to budget on the system-generated revenue side of things. Turning the page to expenses, looking at expenses for the month. Labor, we're pretty much right on budget for our labor expenses. So we've got kind of the workforce that we anticipated having. So those labor expenses are right where we projected them. Material expenses coming in under budget. That's the benefit of having those new buses and trains coming into place and lowering that material expenditure. Fuel, we are seeing better rates on fuel. So even as we're running full service, we are getting some savings because we're getting a better rate than we anticipated. On the power side of things, we are getting both a better rate and we are seeing the benefits of having a credit for some expenses that we had last year. So you'll continue to see that positive variance. It's a little bit higher than you would anticipate giving the rate just because of that one-time credit that we're receiving. Security services pretty much coming in right on budget. Other expenses, positive to budget, a little bit more so than you would anticipate. We do think there's some timing around there around some of those services that we'll see coming in place in the second half of the year. So year to date, we roll all those together. You see the same trends. The numbers get a little bit larger here looking at the year to date numbers. The only other thing I'll note here is that security services is positive to budget for the year. That's just rolling forward some of that positive variance we saw in the first quarter for that particular item. And then total operating expenses, 39.4 million positive to budget year to date through June. Public funding side of things, we continue to see strong monthly collections from our sales tax. Again, we're 3 months in arrears there, so you're seeing results for the most recent month of collections, which for us in June was April. So you can see we're 12.8 million favorable to budget overall on our public funding sources. And then year to date, again, that trend continues. We're 49.9 million favorable to budget. Not only seeing positive results off those sales tax collections, but also good to see the real estate transfer tax coming in slightly ahead of budget as well. I know that was one where we were kind of chasing that budget line last year. And on the commodity side, no change here. We are looking to lock in that power purchase for 2026, as I've noted. I'm hoping that I can have an update for you on that one in September, where we're able to lock in that price and get that secured for next year, heading into the budget for next year as well. That concludes the monthly finance report. I'll pause here for any questions.
Can you go back to the first page?
Sure.
I'd just like for you to briefly explain to public why those the variances are low, as you explained to me yesterday.
Yeah, so looking at the fair and pass line of things, and this is the month of June, so there is some variance on a month-to-month basis here. So we are seeing growth, so we can see that it's positive versus where we were last year, just not growing quite as robustly as we had projected this year. So we projected kind of month over month being right at that 5% growth on the revenue standpoint. So didn't hit that in the month of June. I'm actually going to flip the page here year to date. So year to date, we're a couple percentage points below kind of where we anticipated in that revenue growth, but you can see we are still above where we were last year. Nothing really significant because that's more than accounted for with that additional non-fare box revenue that we're seeing. So we're comfortable with those results right now, but just note that that growth was a little bit slower than we anticipated on the fare and pass revenue side, driven by a little bit slower ridership growth, although there is pretty strong growth on the system already.
And it's to my understanding that we tend to see an uptick in July, August, when students return to college.
Yeah, typically September, October are going to be our highest months for ridership. July is usually one of our strongest months for revenue because we get a lot of visitors and one-time full fare uses. And I did see some of the preliminary July numbers, and those are favorable for us. So, it's a positive trend then heading into the fall.
Thank you.
We'll take questions from other members of the board. Director Raquel.
Yeah, just to follow up on Pastor Jake's question. So it's first of all, it's great to see that we are growing in ridership from last year to this year. That's great. And also, it is just slightly concerning that last year, when we made the projections of how much we would be growing, we seem to have been a bit more optimistic than the numbers show. So we are mid-year, we have data for 6 months. And I guess my question is, what are some of the drivers that are leading to the numbers being a little lower than we thought, and any course corrections or adjustments that we need to make to bring them up in the rest of the year?
Yeah, so let me talk about the financial side of it with the revenue that we're seeing. Happy to bring Molly up here to talk a little bit more about some of the ridership patterns as well. You can see here, just breaking it down between fares and passes, that passes year to date are positive to budget, right? Fare box is a little bit lower. I would say cash fares are a little bit lower as well. So those are kind of coming in below some of our initial pay per use projections on bus in particular for some of those fare box levels. $5 million, year to date, and then you carry that through the full year end. You're talking about a 3% difference off of what you projected, which is notable, and you certainly want to understand it, but it's not going to be something where it puts you sort of, out of step with the rest of the budget, right? You're always going to have ups and downs in what you project. I think we felt going into the year a projection in August of what growth would look like, throughout the rest of this year, that this was kind of following industry trends for what we had seen in ridership growth and revenue growth and fare box growth. We've seen the industry kind of slow down a little bit. So this, I think, is consistent with what we've seen across other systems as well. But I would highlight the right side of it, which is that continued growth, right? We haven't had any change in prices, right? So this is all driven by demand and demand growth on the system, just not quite meeting that sort of watermark that we established and that goal that we established for ourselves. Molly, do you want to talk a little bit about ridership?
Yeah, so I think Tom hit on a lot of it. We do see softening sort of across the industry. A lot of the industry saw really strong growth, especially on bus in 2023 and 2024. And sort of based on what we were seeing in 23 and 24 and returning to full service by the end of 24 and then adding the frequent network, we did make some aggressive projections that was in line with what we had seen in prior years and what the industry was indicating we might see. But really across the board, we are seeing more of a softening across bus, and that is one of the drivers of this. But what I would also note, there's a lot of really bright spots too. You know, rail was growing at sort of 1% to 2%. We were not seeing rail grow at a strong rate in the last couple of years, but now it's growing at a 6% to 7% rate. So that is really good for us to see that we're seeing rail come back strong, and we're seeing strong rail ridership. We're also seeing really strong ridership on the frequent bus network routes. The frequent bus network routes are outpacing growth from sort of the whole system. So we look at the system-wide growth for bus, it's about 1%. When you look at the frequent bus network specifically and just hone in on those 12 routes that we've already added to the frequent network, that growth is more like 4%. And that doesn't even include, that includes things like the J14, which is actually growing at almost 20%. It includes the 26 Blue Island, which is growing at 16%. So we have some really strong numbers and strong bright spots as we've talked about, but there is some softening that we see. We do see system-wide bus down and something, or sort of flat, I would say, growth-wise, where we did project stronger growth. And what I would also note is we're seeing some softening around some transfer situations. So we used to see a lot of transfers from bus to rail, especially on the south side. And we've been seeing that transfer activity is not happening as much from bus to rail. We continue to look into what's driving that. But this is sort of post-COVID time still. I know we're 5 years out from COVID now, but it's still, people are still sort of, changing their mobility patterns. Things are still settling a little bit. So we are continuing to look at some of those trends and trying to understand what might be driving those.
So thank you for that. And concern that I've been having repeatedly is I actually don't think projections were aggressive. I think the projections were what we thought happened. But the system and the situation of running our system is not the same. So one question that I have is, what are we doing to improve ridership especially in the south side? Because this keeps happening, right? Our buses are showing growth everywhere, but in some lines that are located there. And I know the demand is there. People need to take the bus. So that's one of the questions. And the other assumption I've been having is that you cannot fully deploy a frequent network if you depend on the lanes to be available, and the lanes are clogged with traffic. That is not your responsibility. CDOT's responsibility, is IDOT's responsibility, a bunch of other people. So how are we addressing those two things? One, the localization of some of the issues in the south side, and two, the overall issue of coordination and collaboration from CDOT, IDOT, and others.
Yeah, so from an overall sort of how we're looking at service delivery and how we're looking at making sure that we're capturing the riders, to your point on demand, we're continuing to invest in the frequent network and continuing to invest in that reliability. We continue to hire. So one of the key focuses of reliability really is making sure you have the operators, not only to fill scheduled work, but people, have vacations, they get sick, things happen. And so making sure that we have what's called an extra board, a nicely sized extra board, so that we can fill in any canceled work or operator unavailability. So that's been one thing that we've been continuing really for the past couple of years that I think has been a strong driver of getting us back from where we were in 2022 from a service delivery perspective to now. But I think that also, it's sort of a lagging indicator, if you will. Like, people are very quick to believe bad news, right? They're very quick to say, I saw a ghost bus once, so every single bus is a ghost bus. It's hard for people sometimes to see the positive trends that we're going. And so how the team has looked at it, how we've really captured it, is we have made really strong strides over the last couple of years. And now is the time to continue to build on it. It is not the time to sort of say, oh, there's not as much ridership, so we should cull back, service frequency. We're really saying, okay, we had challenges in 22. We've continued to build and improve, and we're going to continue to invest in the frequent network, continue to invest in making sure we have enough operators to deliver that service. And I do know bus service management has put a lot of resources on supervision in those areas as well, because that's part of it as well, is making sure that if a bus, runs into, as you mentioned, some of the street congestion, things like that, that there's supervision to help that bus reroute, help that bus work through some of that. So it's also about the street supervision that I know BSM, Bus Service Management, has invested in. So that's what I'd say what we're doing right now. Longer term, as we're continuing to look, we do have the bus corridor plan study, bus priority corridor study, and that is looking at bus priority and bus infrastructure on major corridors throughout the city. There are 2 south side corridors. Cottage Grove is one, 55th Garfield is the other, and then Pulaski, which is north-south, but does cut through the south side, especially with the extension that the board approved and goes into effect on Sunday, really does improve that south side service. So that bus corridor study does allow us to work with CDOT to prioritize bus infrastructure prioritization on some of those routes. We are kicking off outreach this fall with a plan to have some initial presentations of proposed infrastructure investments in the spring, and then the plan would be finalized in 2026. So we'll get initial end of 2026. So we'll get initial outreach from writers this fall. We'll say, okay, we've heard you. We've started to study those areas. Here's our proposed infrastructure plan, and then finalize that in 26, and then ideally start to look for funding and the design support to actually implement that. So that's a big 4-door wide plan. We also are doing transit signal prioritization. So we've been investing in transit signal prioritization across the system. On Western and Ashland, very specifically, are 2 that have transit signal prioritization, but we've been adding them elsewhere. And 79th Street is also a key target for bus priority zones. Bus priority zones are where we do infrastructure investments at key pinch points or key corridors to make sure the bus can move faster. So it can be, queue jumps so that the bus gets ahead of everybody else at a red light. It also can be things like bus bulbs, so it makes it easier to board. The bus doesn't have to get out of the lane of traffic to board customers and then return to the lane of traffic. So we really take an approach of how do we manage the service on the street? How do we make sure we have enough operators and then enough supervision to deliver it? How do we think about the smaller sort of targeted infrastructure investments that can happen over
Molly, you were talking about 79th Street.
Yeah.
What would it take to work out those kinks? How long will it take?
Yeah, so, the bus corridor, the bus priority zones that we've done, working out some of those pinch points, some of those kinks, we can get those done kind of in like a sort of construction cycle, if you will. So we can get those done. We've identified them. We can get them done in about a year. We also did do pop-up bus lanes on 79th Street. I don't know if you remember this during COVID. We did have a pop-up bus lane that we worked with CDOT and there was red paint there. That was done in months. So it kind of just depends on, one, we kind of took advantage of a crisis, just to be honest. Not as many cars were on the road and it was like, take the lane. And so we put down red paint and we took the lane for our bus. And that was really great for 79th Street. But it really does take kind of a full construction cycle for those bus priority zone treatments. For the longer bus corridor study plans, and where you're actually saying we're going to take dedicated bus lanes, we're going to add a lot of infrastructure to ensure that that dedicated bus lane is continued to use by our bus system only, that can take multiple years. And so that's why we kind of layer this over of, you want to do the bus priority zones and continue to study the bus corridor plans and do the larger infrastructure, which will take longer term.
And my next question goes to Tom. In terms of the sales tax, I'm so glad that that's an added revenue for us to increase that. How does that fit into next year's budget?
Yeah, so the additional sales tax revenue that we're receiving this year, along with any favorability that we have from our system revenue, our expenses,
Director Eden?
No question.
Director Lee?
No further questions. Thank you.
Before moving forward, we are having technical issues, but we're going to proceed anyway. Okay.
To clarify, we are not live streaming on YouTube, which is our goal per the Open Meetings Act and everything else. We are recording the meeting, so everything that is happening is being captured. And our tech team is working assiduously hard to rectify the situation and to also give a message to the public that we are experiencing some technical difficulties. And we think we have addressed that issue.
The recording will be available.
Good. All right, let's go to agenda item number 4. It's the review of an ordinance authorizing a second amendment to a concession lease agreement for basement space and adjacent property located at 4620 North Broadway, Chicago on the Red Line. Tom McCone, Stina Fish, and Bill Mooney.
Okay, let me describe the ordinance, and then my partners here are also available to answer questions you may have about this particular one. So today I present for your consideration an ordinance authorizing a second amendment to the lease agreement with Chicago Cooperative, doing business as Chicago Market, a co-op grocery store. Chicago Market leases the Gerber building adjacent to the Wilson Station. This amendment abates Chicago Market's rent payments for a 6-month period between July 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2025. It also extends the lease by an additional 6 months so that the total amount of lease payments is not diminished. The Gerber building interior is unfinished and requires significant build-out before any business can operate in the space. Chicago Market is facing construction costs that are higher than anticipated and is seeking additional sources of funding to fill their gap. This 6-month rent abatement gives Chicago Market time to identify additional funding for their build-out. Chicago Market is up to date on their rent payments through June 30th, 2025. They have broad support from the community and look forward to opening this future endeavor. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
No, it was well explained yesterday, so I have no questions. Thank you.
We'll take questions from other members of the board. Director Rakeo?
No questions, just to bring up the issue that the way I see these real estate transactions is what would be an ETOD agenda. This is the difference between TOD and ETOD, being equitable with an organization that is struggling and needs some extra help. And CTA is doing the right thing here. And I would love to see it being part of a larger strategy. And also want to remind folks that were pieces in the legislation that did not pass in Springfield that funded and provided resources to agencies to pay for this kind of stuff. So it'd be great to have resources every time that a small business or a developer near CTA needs help from CTA for technical assistance, for loans, for grants, and we don't have it. So I want to remind everyone it's a good opportunity to keep advocating for that kind of resource and to CTA to continue working on what would be a full scope strategy to support small businesses near CTA.
No.
Director E?
Yeah, you responded to my question yesterday, but I'm going to take from something Reverend Jakes had just, Director Jakes had just done. For public record, could you help me, public, to understand why this is being stalled as it has, and what can we have in terms of optimism about the fact that this can be realized? Because there's been many starts and stops along the way.
I mean, I'll take a first pass at it. Is as we have experienced, and us as an agency, all of us individually, post-pandemic cost inflation, market conditions have changed drastically. So this entity, this work, this opportunity pre-pandemic, and the restoration of the Gerber building post Wilson Station left a shell building, fully facaded architectural building, watertight, but without build out, was not finished space. And so part of their proposal included the requirement to build out that space, which is a significant investment for any startup business to go into, especially one that is a cooperative, really a public utility kind of opportunity, right? they had to put together a funding stack to be able to support that build out plan. And so they were working adamantly with their investors, private financing, public financing to do this. And they were about ready to go to bid with their construction program for this. And they got their latest round of estimates, and that reflected an increase in marketing costs that were beyond what they were carrying contingency, which has stalled them out at this point. So they have to go find more money to be able to build this out. If we were not to support this business and see it successfully going on, any business that would come in there would still face that cost impact, right? That's going to happen to build that out, or CTA will have to incur that cost impact to build out the space to make it occupiable. And that is a cost that we currently can't afford to budget ourselves to support. Their lease conditions also were pre-pandemic lease values, which was a higher market value. And so beneficially, if we were to go back out to market post this condition, we would see a higher initial startup cost for them, which means that they would have lower lease values that they would be bidding anyway, because they had to put more into it that they got to amortize out to begin with in a market that's already showing lower lease values. So, they really are struggling to find the right mix of funding to be able to make this work. They are beloved in this community. It is a very, very desired, committed community to an opportunity like this. The Alder is working very hard with the city to try and help close this gap in public financing. And so we are really looking to help support that window of time so that they can close that gap and we can see this come off the ground, because ultimately we really believe this is the best interest for the authority in the long term. And at the end of this, if they're successful, we get finished space. So even if we go to recompete this in the future, we get space that now is approved and helps our market condition for that market going forward.
So it sounds as though we're very hopeful that they are going to put that financial package together.
Couple fingers crossed. Yeah.
I get it.
I think everyone really wants this. It's the community, the electeds, market itself, its ownership structure, and us. So.
Here.
Director Lee.
Excited about this. Also double fingers crossed there.
Director Ja.
No questions, thank you.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that this item be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ricao?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay? Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Eady?
Yeah.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes,
Motion passes. Director Jakes, we may now proceed to agenda item number 5.
Agenda item 5 is the review of an I'm sorry?
Take a brief test to assess the streaming situation. That would be very helpful.
May we have a motion to recess the meeting until a fixed time to reconvene following our assessment of the streaming situation?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that based on the advice from council, that we recess the meeting until a fixed time to adjourn after assessing and prayerfully fixing the streaming situation. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ricao.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
I'm gonna vote no.
Okay. Director Eady.
Yeah.
Director Lee.
Yeah. Sure.
Director Ja.
yes.
There are 5 votes in the affirmative, 1 vote nay. I believe that the affirmative votes prevail.
Thank you.
amendment of a ground lease at 1708 Benson Avenue, Evanston, on the Purple Line. Bill.
Morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Real estate staff recommends approval of an ordinance to authorize consent to the assignment and amendment of a ground lease at 1708 Benson Avenue. CTA has leased land at 1708 Benson Avenue to the adjacent retail property since 1999. Ground lease has been assigned to several successor owners over the past 26 years. Ground lease has a term of 20 years with two 10-year options to extend the ground lease until November of 2039. The new owner of the adjacent retail property, CSP Evanston Retail LLC, is seeking to assume the current ground lease. All of their terms remain the same and are not impacted by this assignment. I'll be happy to take any questions on this item.
I have no questions, Bill. Thank you.
Director Rakeo,
No questions.
Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Eady,
No questions.
Director Lee, Director Ja,
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that this item be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Eady.
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
Director Ja.
Yes.
The motion passes. Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 6.
Agenda item 6 is the review of an ordinance authorizing a lease between the authority and Ship Bob Inc. for property located at 120 North Racine Avenue, Chicago. Bill.
Morning. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing lease for property at 120 North Racine Avenue. On August 12, 2015, the Transit Board approved a 10-year lease agreement with Randolph Racine for 84,879 square feet, which expires on September 1st, 2025. February 14th, 2018, the CTA approved a sublease agreement between Randolph Racine and Ship Bob for 20,272 square feet of the 120 North Racine facility. As the master lease with Randolph Racine is expiring and Ship Bob has interest remaining on the property, CTA and Ship Bob have reached an agreement for Ship Bob to lease space in the building directly from CTA on a month-to-month basis. The lease will commence on September 1st, 2025 at a rate of $15,000 per month. I'll be happy to take any questions on this item.
I have no questions, Bill.
Director Rakeo,
No questions.
Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Eady,
No questions.
Director Lee,
None.
Director Ja,
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that this item be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Eady.
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
Director Ja.
Yes.
The motion passes. Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 7.
Agenda item 7 is the review of contract number A1, which is a contract award for transit operations. I have no questions.
Director Rakeo,
No.
Chairman Barclay,
Question.
Director Eady,
No questions.
Director Lee,
Thank you.
Director Ja,
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no questions.
The next order of business today is the review of contract number, I'm sorry,
Who was that?
where am I?
Number 7.
Oh, yeah, no, that was number 7.
In them.
Yes, I'm at contract C1. C1, which is a contract award for finance. I have no questions.
Director Rakeo,
No questions.
Chairman Barclay,
No question.
Director Eady,
No questions.
Director Lee,
None, thank you.
Director Ja.
No questions.
Our next order of business is the review of contract number D1, which is a contract award for planning. No questions.
Director Rakeo,
No questions.
Chairman Barclay,
No question.
Director Eady,
No questions.
Director Lee,
None.
Director Ja.
No questions.
Our next order of business is the review of contract number F1, which is a contract award for administration. No questions.
Director Rakeo, Chairman Barclay,
No question.
Director Eady,
No questions.
Director Lee,
None.
Director Ja.
No.
Next order of business today is the review of contract number I1, which is a contract award for law. No questions.
Director Rakeo,
No questions.
Chairman Barclay,
No question.
Director Jakes,
None.
Director Eady,
No, no questions.
Director Lee, Director Ja.
No.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I now have leave to place the 5 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that the items be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Eady?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Since there's no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that the omnibus be presented for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Eady?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
The motion passes.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Ja, that the Finance, Audit and Budget Committee meeting for August 13th, 2025 be adjourned. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Jakes?
Yes.
Director Eady?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Jakes, the motion passes.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.
The meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for August 13th, 2025. Georgette, please call the roll.
Director Rakeo?
Present.
Chairman Barclay?
Here.
Director Jakes?
Here.
Director Eady?
Here.
Director Lee?
Present.
Chairman Barclay, you do have a quorum with 5 board members present.
Thank you. It's brought to my attention in preparation for today's meeting that Director Nima Ja would be unable to attend in person due to a travel obligation in connection with her employment. May I have a motion that she be permitted to participate in this meeting remotely?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that Director Nima Ja be permitted to participate in the meeting remotely. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Eady?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Our next order of business is public comment. Georgette?
Chairman Barclay, we have 1 public comment. Add a few more. Actually, I think we have 2. The first is Ms. Patricia Fuentes. I did see her. Do not see her now. And our second public commenter is, I think I just made up a word, is Mr. Bradley Madden. Mr. Madden, please come forward. Thank you. I would just remind you that you do have 3 minutes within which to speak, and your time starts now.
Hey, thank you, and good morning. My name is Brad Matton. I'm a CTA rider from the West Ridge neighborhood. That's near Peterson and Western. I need functional transit so that I can work downtown safely and get there safely and on time. Today, I want to share with you a couple stories and ask a few questions. Last night, I left my office in the Loop at 7:30 p.m. and didn't get home until 9:22 p.m. A commute that used to take just over an hour now takes 45 extra minutes. It nearly doubled. That's 45 minutes a day that I could be spending with my family at home. Now, the bus driver told me that reconstruction at the Western Brown Line station is forcing the 49B bus to take some long and complicated route to turn around, when it used to turn around right at the Brown Line station. The CTA announcement on this says to allow for extra time, but 45 extra minutes, I think we can do better. So my first question for you is, can we get more regular service back for the 49B route? Before packing onto a 49B bus last night, I saw multiple near empty 49 buses. Simply extending the route of some of those buses to Howard might be one way to fix that. Next, I'd like to share my experiences with the trains. I try to avoid it, but sometimes I do have to travel during rush hour, and I'm surprised to see people lighting up cigarettes on packed train cars. Now, this shouldn't happen at any hour, but the secondhand smoke exposure risk is amplified at rush hour. Not everyone can easily escape a packed car and dash to the next car. In another recent trip that I made, there was a large and belligerent man who was shouting threatening things and impulsively blowing raspberries. I was 2 seats away from this guy and somehow got spit on my phone screen. I've got over a decade of experience in jiu-jitsu, so I personally felt relatively safe. That's not true for most people. And as an organizer, I've heard from a few women who've shared with me they no longer ride the trains out of fear for their safety. Both of these stories lead to my next question. And without just involving the police, which can make these situations worse, what actions will the CTA take to address smoking and safety on CTA trains? To conclude, I have a couple final questions for the board. One, do we expect that CTA ridership and call center staffing will be fully returned to pre-pandemic levels by the end of 2025? Why or why not? And two, last but not least, we are headed for a $771 million fiscal cliff at the end of 2025. While I'm hopeful that Pritzker and the General Assembly will save us from this disaster, I would like to hear directly from the CTA what their contingency plan is if we fail to close that $771 million funding gap. I'd really like to know so that my neighbors and I can figure out what changes we need to make in our lives so we can get to work starting in January. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to hear back from you on my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Raton, for coming to the meeting to talk to you earlier for a few moments as well. Very important issues brought up, a diverse set of issues. I will invite you to Molly Poppy to talk about the services she had, and I apologize for the long run that you had last evening, as well as the smoking initiatives that we've taken. And I know we spoke a little bit about the timing on the fiscal cliff and the information coming as the RTA budget process proceeds. But you can also speak with Tom McCohen, our Chief Financial Officer, to hear more about that timeline.
So thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did he say call center staff? He said the call center staff, right?
We have plenty of seats. I would just ask those who have joined the meeting to find one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do that, isn't true?
Yeah, right.
Take a seat.
Yeah.
And next item of business on the agenda is our president's report, which will be given by our acting president, Nora Learson.
Thank you, Chairman, and great to be with you all directors. It's been a busy month, so I'm excited to walk through some recent developments in accordance with the pillars that I've put forth that shape our work during this period. So being focused on people and the people we serve internally at CTA, our employees, as well as our riders, the CTA Chats program was a wild success. We had 18 events, spoke to nearly 2,000 riders across the system. And I know for myself, I went to 3 of the events, as well as I know others attended as well. You just can't beat kind of that symbolism of meeting people where they are as they're getting on and off the train and onto their buses and hearing from them about what's on their mind. We gathered a lot of really good information regarding service frequency being very much valued by our riders across the board, and the issues that we know also come up around security and cleanliness, and that really inform the work we do internally to address all those issues. We also saw a lot of excitement about our new stations, part of the RPM project, which is what I'll be talking about at the end of my remarks, and that people continue to be excited about investment in CTA in new ways. My focus on employees continue, as well as the community. The summer offers great opportunities around parades. The Disability Pride Parade, Director Lee and I attended and enjoyed very much. The Bud Billiken Parade this past weekend, Chairman Barclay and Chief of Staff April Morgan. We had a good, very hot, but very exciting time there. On a Sunday, I also had the privilege of attending the CTA Employee Softball League game. Two games, in fact, the old school versus new school game, as well as the all-star game. I threw out the first pitch of both. Let's just say people value quality at CTA. My first pitch required some intervention and coaching, and my second pitch was much better. but it, really captured the spirit of CTA and was a really fun day. And I really want to thank them all for having me. One Summer Chicago program included. We had them here at our last meeting, also a huge success. We ended up having over 300 students, a record for CTA, and that concluded last week. And we're already to work getting ready for next year because I know our staff puts together what I would argue is the most comprehensive One Summer Chicago curriculum in the city in terms of supporting those students. And we're really excited about continuing that program. My field visits continue, and this past month, I also went out purposefully and strategically on the Red Line in the overnight hours from 47th Street to 79th Street and rode the train and spoke with the employees on staff there. As you know, we've deployed in collaboration with the police department more security resources from Cermak Chinatown to 95th on the overnight hours. And we're seeing positive results in terms of some of the numbers of crime on the Red Line as a result. And I wanted to talk with employees about their experience and the support they're getting, as well as working in the heat. It was one of the hottest days of the year that we were out. And I wanted to say thank you and let them know that we're thinking about their experiences as we develop policy and investments moving forward. In terms of our focus on partnerships, I testified on July 30th in front of the Transportation Committee at City Council, was happy to give updates to City Council regarding our hiring and service delivery across the board. And unsurprisingly, there was a lot of discussion around our fiscal situation and offerings from aldermen to be part of supporting us in that process. And I've had a few meetings since that hearing in which we've talked further about how they can be good partners during this time. We also announced just after the July meeting last month a partnership with the Chicago Police Department and their deployment of a new enhanced expanded strategic decision support center, which is an exciting advancement in terms of the use of our cameras and technology across the system, where you have more police and detectives manning that room than ever and using our cameras to deploy resources in all different ways. We're also really at a point in a couple different subject areas of unprecedented engagement at this agency with stakeholders in various ways. You've been getting updates, the board, on the pilots in terms of the security work that we're doing. And one of the next big steps in that is a transit community safety workshop that is taking place at the end of this month that has many attendees across various community organizations, law enforcement support, and security experts to all come together to talk about how to design policy that meets the needs of our riders and hear from them about the experiences that they're having. That's in addition to upcoming engagement around the budget in various ways. So you'll see after the RTA budget is more crystallized, you're going to see us engaging with budget roundtables, as well as stakeholder engagement with regards to the policies that are being discussed more broadly in Springfield. And this is really a new shift in CTA in which I've directed staff to have these meetings, coordinate them. We're getting space to come meet and be in big groups and talk together about these issues and be transparent and open in discussion. And I'm really excited about what's going to come from those discussions across the board. In being performance focused, I always like to give a few ridership updates. And there was a good discussion in terms of ridership earlier during our finance report. But just to give a flavor of the health of our system in various ways, our L system had the biggest week since the pandemic ever in the week of Lollapalooza, serving over 3.1 million rides. It was also the first week that the rail system went over 3 million rides. This is the second best week overall of the year. We're up 10% year over year in that week, just to give you a sense of the growth there. The Lollapalooza Festival added an estimated 332,000 rail rides from Thursday through Sunday. Adams, Wabash, Roosevelt, Jackson, Dearborn, Harrison, those stations impacted by the festival saw their ridership double during that time. And I want to say, our system delivered service incredibly well during that period and moved a large amount of people through the system on a very busy Saturday in particular in terms of baseball games across the city. It was noted as a really notable busy city day, and our system is what allowed that to happen. We also see really impressive numbers from our new stations. So with the reopening of our 4 RPM stations and the 1-year anniversary of the Damon Green Line, we're seeing this transformative power of new, modern, fully accessible stations, and that ridership follows those investments. The segment of the Red Line from Wilson to Bryn Mawr, for example, saw 23% year-over-year ridership growth in the second week that they were open. The Berwyn and Lawrence stations saw a net addition of more than 14,000 trips across all stations, and Berwyn and Lawrence have already recovered their share of ridership in the region compared to pre-pandemic levels. At Damon Green, we celebrated reaching nearly 250,000 rides at that station in the first year, which has been visited by nearly 65,000 unique riders. Notably with Damon, this also demonstrates the power of a new station providing net new mobility across the stations nearby. So California, Damon, and Ashland on the Lake branch are experiencing nearly 20% year-over-year growth in that segment. And Morgan is seeing over 13% year-over-year growth. So something I'm going to take a moment just to dive into, and I'm going to have Molly Poppy come up and provide a little bit more detail on this subject, because it was a key announcement in the last few weeks, was the publication of bus cancellation data that we're having on our apps and transit information. This is a really important step in the discussion of ghost buses, which I know have haunted us, no pun intended, over the past couple of years in various ways. Now, the seismic impact on ghost buses has really come from hiring, right? We've hired over 5,000 people in the past 2 years. We have more bus operators than we did pre-pandemic. That's really what is helping us keep the schedule in the way that you're seeing ghost buses drastically decrease. But another key movement in that is this transparent sharing of information so that riders aren't seeing the bus disappear on their app. Psychologically, as we all know, this just erodes trust in the information from CTA in a significant way. So I'm really happy to see a step in this direction where if a bus is canceled, riders are made aware of that and they can better trust the information coming their way. And it's also a part of other steps we're taking, and Molly's going to touch on that we're soon going to be launching additional reroute information. So when a bus gets rerouted, and I know our public commenters spoke on that today, that riders are more empowered beyond the kind of general information that I know was referenced earlier in comments. So Molly, if you could walk through a couple of slides on this. Thanks.
Yep. Molly Poppy, Chief Planning and Innovation Officer. So as Acting President Learson mentioned, ghost buses is an impact of a sort of host of different conditions on the street and does really impact how riders feel about our service. And so just a couple of sort of the things that cause ghost buses and how we really started thinking about this work of how do we address the accuracy of Bus Tracker and really ensure that Bus Tracker and the information that is provided via Bus Tracker to other third-party apps is accurate. So the things that can cause inaccurate information for riders is a trip cancellation. Operator sick, something happens, and so we're not going to be running that particular bus trip. There's also an improper layover location. So what that means is sometimes we have people parked in our layover spots where our buses are supposed to stop. They park in our bus stops too. And what happens is if an operator and a bus is not able to be specifically in their layover location, you actually will start to see delays in the Bus Tracker. The bus is still coming, but how Bus Tracker views it is that bus has not reached its layover location. It's not ready to start its next run or its next trip. So therefore, there must be an issue on the bus. So it gives that delay. So that's what you see here with this middle screen of what gets delayed to what gets displayed to the customers. There's other sort of issues that come up. There's defective equipment, right? Buses break down. And so you see that a bus is broken down and we see that it's on the street running. And so there's an assumption that it's coming and it's not. There's also different sort of issues that we do. What we have here is like relief time, short turns, fallbacks. These are all different ways that we manage street conditions. We manage service on the street. And so these are decisions that bus service management makes to try to restore service. And sometimes what then happens is it can cause inaccuracies in Bus Tracker. So I have sort of two examples here of how customers sometimes see ghost buses. So they'll see delays when a bus is actually coming. And then what also happens is there's those green sort of 3 radio waves that you see next. That means a bus is actually coming. But what happens when a bus isn't coming is it still counts down because it's counting down towards schedule. And so this right-hand side is what you actually see more often. What customers would see as a ghost bus is they see a bus counting down towards them via the schedule when there's not actually a bus delivering that service. So planning and innovation, IT, customer communications, operations, a whole host of teams got together and decided, how do we start to solve this problem? As Acting President Learson mentioned, hiring is a key focus of this, but we also need to invest in the software and the tools behind it. And so we've been working for the last couple of years to launch what's called Disruption Management. Disruption Management is a software tool that is integrated with, it's our CAD AVL system. That is our system that manages bus, gives it schedule, gives it all the stop information, things like that. And what it allows us to do through the disruption management is improve communications with riders. It allows us to support service on the street. And it really helps us to address ghost buses and service challenges that we know really frustrate riders. So this is just kind of showing all the work that has happened just on the bus tracker side for disruption management. We were on the cutting edge of bus tracker back in the early aughts. We were one of the first transit agencies to launch it. And sometimes when you're on the cutting edge, you want to stay on the cutting edge, and that's where we want to be today. And so that's why we've made so many of these investments in bus tracker, working with disruption management, showing this canceled work, so that we were the premier leaders in the early aughts. We're going to be the premier leaders again, and how agencies should be communicating with their riders about service. So this just really shows all the different work that has happened over the last couple of years, really culminating in the first step of this, which is the canceled work, as President Learson mentioned. So we started launching canceled work in June and July of this year. We started rolling it out by bus garage. What it is when, I'll use an example, a bus breaks down. So we have a bus that's broken down on the street. Control center is notified, hey, bus 1234 is not going to be able to complete its run. It's broken down. Control center then is able to go in to our service now and say, we're going to cancel run 1234. And so then what shows up to the rider is you actually see this canceled work. So you'll see here a bus was scheduled to come and it's canceled. The reason we do that is twofold. One, people do know the bus schedules. They do know a bus is supposed to be here at 9:05, 9:06. Where is it? And so we're being very transparent with the customers to say, this bus is no longer coming. And then you see below it that run 1111 is coming in 8 minutes. So it allows us to both communicate there is a canceled trip, but there is service still coming. And it really allows that level of transparency with the customers. What would be sort of a similar ghost bus is if we just canceled it and we just deleted it, right? People saw it coming and all of a sudden it poof went away. That's not what we want. So that's why we display the canceled information as well. So no one has any sort of confusion on what may happen. On the right-hand side is the information that we've given to third-party apps. So we control bus tracker. We can't control everybody, but we control the information that we put out. So we have been communicating with app developers who utilize our information to make sure that they understand now how we are delivering canceled work and that they have that information so that then they can do the development work to show this work. And we've given them guidance on either say canceled or cross out the time for customers. We've been very clear. We don't want them just deleting it from the app as well. So we don't want them causing the confusion. Because what we do know is about 50% of users, a little less, use bus tracker, but then about 50% of our riders do tend to use other third-party apps. So then what's coming next? So we've done canceled work. It's been rolled out across all of our bus garages. We've seen really positive feedback on that. Now what we have is real-time reroute information. So we did a sort of quiet pilot that is now not quiet on St. Patty's Day in order to test out this reroute work. So what happens today before we launch disruption management is when there is a reroute of bus service, we do post paper signs at the bus stops that says this bus is on a reroute. And then we do put service alerts in all of our apps that say there is a reroute. But what still happens is because we didn't have the technology tools to cancel the service at a bus stop, you may actually still think a bus is coming because there is a run happening. There is a bus coming, but the bus is going to be rerouted before it gets to your bus stop. And so we tend to see that a lot. Really, the number 3 is a good example. We see that a lot around Lollapalooza and things like that. Is the bus is coming down the street, and instead of continuing on Michigan, it takes that left on Roosevelt. So folks that are waiting in that Michigan area downtown may see a bus coming when it's really not. So with disruption management and what we're doing with the detours, we have sort of on the left side is an example of the map and what sort of is a broad view of what people could see if they go into the map. But what most customers will see is the two here on the right. So the middle one is giving you information on, okay, I am now at the bus stop that is rerouted. And so I can now wait at State and 9th Street and get real-time information of when that bus is going to arrive. So you're getting real-time information on when the bus is arriving. And then same thing, if you're waiting at Michigan and Jackson, which is part of the typical route, but is now rerouted, you will now get no service is scheduled for this stop at this time. And then you see the service alert below it, which then provides you the direction on where to go to the next bus stop. So we've been testing this, and we did a pilot in St. Patrick's Day with the support of President Lee, sort of making sure that this really works and that this is, as what she mentioned is, when we're not providing the right information, we can erode customer confidence. We also want to make sure we get this right before we go live. So we've been testing this a lot over the last couple of months, and we're aiming to roll it out for the Chicago Marathon in October. Chicago Marathon is one of the biggest reroute activities that we have in the entire year. It is also one of our highest ridership days that Sunday. And so we're planning to roll it out where we'll have 30 to 40 bus reroutes that we need to communicate to customers. And so that is our first plan to start rolling this out. And then after that, we'll be able to continue to roll this out. What's really great about the reroute information is it's not just planned reroutes, it also can be unplanned reroutes. We also know there's scenarios where a water main breaks, there's police activity, whatever it may be. This system is dynamic enough where we can update it in real time. It doesn't have to be added multiple days in advance. There can be a call into our control center that says, there's a water main break on Michigan, we need to reroute the number 3, and that can be done in real time. So customers can be given that information in real time. So this is just one example of how we continue to invest in Bus Tracker and how we continue to think about communicating with the riders and how that is visually represented to the riders in our Bus Tracker system. And then also just being very clear that we do tell third-party developers what we want them to do as well, because we don't want them interpreting our information and displaying the wrong information to customers.
Thanks, Molly. So that's a key update in our focus on performance. I'd also update you our frequent bus network investments continue. So we have 12 routes that we've put in place so far. And as we've mentioned a few times, ridership is strong on many of those routes. We're seeing that uptick. The J14 is nearly 20% growth year over year with the service enhancements. And the number 60 Blue Island is 14% growth year over year, for example. This Sunday, we'll be launching 4 more additional bus frequent network routes for a total of 16 routes. So this Sunday, you're going to start to see enhancements to the number 53 Pulaski, number 55 Garfield, number 77 Belmont, and the number 82 Kimball Holman routes. And we're excited to monitor the delivery of that service as well as track the ridership on those routes as well. And in the final category of our places, nothing kind of speaks more loudly in these past few weeks in that regard than the opening of our 4 Red Purple Modernization Project stations. So I want to take a few moments to recognize those openings and the efforts behind them. As the board is aware, the stations officially opened to the public on Sunday, July 20th with a ceremonial first ride for the community. The following day, we hosted an official press conference as I was joined by Board Director Michelle Lee, and we welcomed Mayor Johnson and a host of elected officials, including U.S. Senator Dick Durbin and other members of the Illinois congressional delegation, state legislators, and others. While Senator Duckworth was unable to attend, I want to say we are always incredibly appreciative of the advocacy of Senator Duckworth and how she got us to that moment in many regards. Since the opening of the stations, the response from the community has been amazing. I attended both days' events and it was absolutely magical. I think, for many of us, we had high expectations of those events and they were exceeded in the experience of those events. And for me personally, I see the RPM project and I see so much more even in the story of the excitement around those events. You see people reacting to true advancements in accessibility and the power that has for our riders in that commitment. You see people see investments in transit and what it means to them. We talk a lot about that and do a lot of communications around what transit means to people, and these events really revealed that. You also see kind of a story to me in the health of Chicago overall and the growth of our city and where we're headed and the direction and how that's a strong one. And you also think about Red Line Extension. And when you see those stations open, it's a reminder of the power of what we're going to see with the advancement of that project on the south side. I have the privilege of also knowing and working with committed advocates for accessibility like our own Director Lee. And I also want to thank Karen Tamley and Laura Saltzman, the chair of our CTA Advisory Committee, ADA Advisory Committee, for being there on that day as well. These tremendous achievements don't just happen. They require a team of dedicated design, construction, and engineering professionals that stay the course year after year to ensure that these beautiful new stations are built flawlessly. They require scores of talented, experienced people with diverse skill sets from the building trades who do hard work in often difficult weather conditions, but whose work is absolutely second to none. And they require community relations and communication staff that remain in constant contact with residents, community leaders, elected officials, media, and many others to ensure information flows to the people who are affected by and who benefit from the work they're doing. I know that through the years of hard work, all of them had in their mind's eye the glorious celebrations we had last month. And it was wonderful to watch them experience those days firsthand. And I'm really happy to note that we have many of them here with us today. Our RPM team works under the leadership of our Chief Infrastructure Officer, Bill Mooney, and under the day-to-day direction of Grace O's, our Vice President for the Red Purple Modernization Project. Unfortunately, Grace is unable to join us today, but I want to acknowledge her leadership here and also note that Grace is an indication of a very incredible story that we're proud of here at CTA, which is the story of women in this project and women leaders in this project. CTA is an award-winning organization for the leadership of women in the Red Purple Modernization Project, and we are incredibly proud of that, and it will go down in history as an achievement of this project as well. So I do want to be clear, these celebrations, these 4 stations we've opened, the overall success of the project, none of it would be possible without the great work and leadership of our Chief Infrastructure Officer, Bill Mooney. So I want to bring Bill up here. I want to thank him for his efforts to get us to this point and give him this opportunity.
Answer we don't often, you hear from me all the time. You actually got lucky enough to hear Grace lessons, right from me, and you got to get to hear Grace. And she's taking well-deserved vacation this week with her family, and so I appreciate the need for them and this team to do that. We have the team here, and so I asked if they could be here because you often make very kind remarks about the work we do here, and I tried my best to portray that back to them. And I will honestly say I always remember to when I catch up with them, but they don't get the experience of hearing that firsthand, right? In this moment. So I did want to just take a moment and thank them. Let's start back. Andy Garvilas. Go ahead, stand up, Andy. Let's go. Jason Miller, Go Villanueva. Let's see, Reddick, Richardson, Noah Arroyo, Kai Bertini, Larry Morse. Working back to front so I don't lose people. Carrie Wagner, Taquanda Hurst, Jeff Wilson, Trina Denny, Base, Graham Garfield. Is anybody? So this is the core RPM team from my side of the world who have been living and breathing this, many of which from the very beginning. When it went off on its own world and its own vision, many of them signed up to join a spaceship and weren't sure if they were ever coming back, right? And that's kind of a running joke with this team, but they have lived, they've breathed, they've sweated this, they've put their lives on hold at times for this. And whenever you build big construction, it becomes its own thing. I often equate it to a bit of experience. Tammy and I spent each other running marathons, right? And we're marathoners, and you kind of either you take on a marathon and take it on and say, oh, I'm going to do this. You've done it and I've accomplished that, or you just get addicted to it and that's all you ever do going forward. You can never think about doing anything else. And you kind of find that out on the journey, but it takes you down a path, and I am forever grateful for their commitment, their tireless work, the sweaty, 90-degree night hours we spend transitioning these things with some of the most unique people on our system. And just, it is a challenge, and they stepped up. They were willing to take it on. And I will say the one thing that was missed, and I was reminded of in all the comments we made about this, on time, on budget. I will put our program up against anybody in the nation. And our ability to deliver a project of this magnitude, complexity, diversity, and all the things we asked to do, and they delivered it on time and on budget. And while we stamped done, we still have a bit of work we got to finish up here, and we got to see it at the finish line. And I would ask everybody else in this room who participated in this and supported it, because this was a dedicated team, but there was a huge amount of family here that helped us get to this finish line. And the one event we celebrated the following Tuesday was with our internal family. We came out, you saw the posters in the lobby, everyone got to sign a banner and celebrate with some cake and stuff, because it takes a village certainly to deliver this. We had people dedicated day in and day out. Nobody's standing, but there's some people, I certainly know that we bothered in the middle of the night. That we were out there, and other folks that, you know, Gus and other folks, Tom McCone was involved in the original procurements, right? Veronica was deeply involved throughout this process. Nora as well. I mean, we don't get here without these folks. And you know, we are here taking victory lap right now, but there was a lot of love in the family getting at different times. So, but truly their success. Appreciate them. So.
So will this be the RLE team as well?
Some of them have already started to transition. So Tammy and Andy work part-time RPM, part-time RLE. They've been working kind of two hats for a while. And as RPM starts to quietly go away, they will start to go. Some of them rolled into other roles in the authority as the needs have changed. One of the things I say we do better than anybody, right, is lessons learned. There is not a moment in time in a project. We do them continuously. We do them on a dedicated quarterly cycle where we learn from ourselves and we build that into the futures of our program. And that's how we get better at delivering these things. That's how we grow our talent. RLE was on its own trajectory and it needed its own team. And so it's growing some of that, but they were not separated from the knowledge base coming from this team. They regularly meet. The RLE team has come up to RPM. They've walked the sites throughout construction. They've tried to learn firsthand. There is a partnership and a unique relationship in that Walsh team too. Some of that's going to RLE too. And so there's lessons learned on the contractor side. There's pitfalls we share with each other. There's a lot of, God, I wish we had only thought of this stuff, that hindsight being 2020 moments. So being able to capture that information and share it in that partnership, huge. You may see some of these other folks there too. I mean.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and Directors. That concludes my report.
Thank you, President Learson, for your report, for highlighting the successes of our summer events. I'd like to take a moment to thank the entire team for the creative partnership, marketing strategies that help promote our services throughout the summer. Our presence at parades, community festivals, and other public events like the CTA Chats, the RPM grand opening has been outstanding this summer. These activities not only showcase our service, but also reinforce our role as a vital part of the communities that we serve. I especially want to acknowledge my colleagues on the board who participated in these events. Director Lee, for your participation in the RPM grand opening ceremony and the Disability Pride Parade. Director Raquel, for your participation in the RPM ceremonial first ride and the CTA Chat series. And Director Edie for joining me at Bud Billiken for breakfast reception this past weekend. It's always meaningful to see our leadership directly engage with the public. Bud Billiken Parade is a personal highlight for me. Walking in the parade has become one of my favorite traditions as chairman. And it was great to have President Learson join us this year, along with Chief of Staff April Morgan. These moments remind us of the power of showing up in our neighborhoods, among our riders, alongside the employees who make our service possible every day. Community engagement is not just a feel-good exercise, directly tied to the work we're doing to secure the legislative and fiscal support needed to provide the transit services our riders deserve. We want to keep showing up for our communities. We need the funding structure that allows us to look to the promise. Over the past several weeks, I've engaged in conversations with legislators and stakeholders, sharing both the urgency of sustainable fiscal support public transportation and my concerns about proposed reforms that would negatively impact providing service to the very people we're here to serve. Want to be clear, accountability is absolutely essential, but it should be strengthened, not sideline local voices, local representation, local solutions. I think Bill Mooney, your team is a definite example of local folks working on local problems, and that's very important. In addition to these conversations, I'm also representing the board on the RTA's ad hoc committee, recently commissioned by RTA Chairman Kirk Diller, to bring the chairs of the service boards together to address budget and fiscal cliff issues. I've been encouraged by the thoughtful and respectful dialogue at these meetings. Budget issues are complex, but what gives me hope is the level of commitment to riders that I've seen from every member of that committee. Those same qualities, thoughtfulness, respect, and prioritizing riders' needs are exactly what we need from every stakeholder and legislator as we work towards a solution in Springfield to address the fiscal cliff. The decisions made in the coming months will have a tremendous impact on our region. Our collective commitment to the people we serve must remain our guide. Thank you again to everyone, staff, board members, community partners, and most importantly, our riders and our frontline employees who made this summer so impactful. Let's carry that same spirit forward into the important work that we must do ahead. At this point, I'd like to open up to any other board members who want to comment on President Learson's report.
Director Rakeo.
Yes, I wanted to, first of all, join the celebration of all the people who stood up here, and Bill, as a resident in the community myself and having gone through the construction process, I know that the people in the room got yelled at and harassed and told many things and opinions for many, many years. And you all get one day to shine. And I'm glad that you got 2 days to shine. And I hope you get more days to shine, and that all that pain is now resulting in happy faces and people who see the work. And I'm really happy that you asked the question about the red line extension, because I cannot wait to see that first track being laid by this team and new people that will join. Second, I wanted to thank the chairman for acknowledging our participation in the chats and the openings of the stations, and how important it is, as you said, that we show up and we support the staff and the community. As I was going through the different openings and conversations, I kept wondering, what would it take to make those 4 stations the norm instead of the exception, right? And what would it take to make every major route 10 minutes or less instead of just those 12, 16 now? And what would it take to leverage the land adjacent to our stations and bus routes to provide homes and business spaces at affordable rent, and to provide home ownership opportunities for our residents, our riders, and our workers? And what would it take to staff our trains, our buses, our stations with customer service assistants, ambassadors, security, artists, performers, and the small businesses? Because it is those kinds of improvements that people need to see to get on board with our $1.5 billion need. And I encourage you, Nora, and your team to keep showing us instead of telling us what this looks like, as you've been doing. I've also been following the development of the state legislation. I appreciate the chairman for opening what's a complicated and difficult conversation. I think there is a lot of good in the pieces that were introduced this spring in the form of sustainable resources, of funding initiatives to increase security, and provisions to build ETOD, among many others. I know there are suggestions out there about governance reforms, and I invite this board and all boards, RTA, PACE, METRA, to reflect on what are the concerns driving those reforms and to own our part of the problem and of the solution. And yes, there are technical flaws in the proposals. But at this point, I am more interested in stepping back and agreeing first on the values that should drive the three main components of the bills. One, the system our riders and workers want and deserve. Two, the funding that will support it. And three, the leadership and governance that should lead it. And some of those new values are going to be radically different from those that have been in place for decades. And that is a good thing, because the real problem is that the funding cliff is not surprising. The problem is that the funding cliff is the result of decades treating transit as second tier, underfunded, politicized, and peripheral to our regional vision. Our system was poorly patched in 2008 with an insufficient and inequitable funding reform. And in 2019, the system was one crisis away from breaking. And then the pandemic came and we broke. And we're still putting ourselves back together. So to move forward, we must reimagine transit as a shared regional asset, as an opportunity builder, a jobs creator, a wealth multiplier, a cure for our declining health and climate resilience indicators. More importantly, as a source of joy and trust and pride. And that means changing, and changing is difficult. Changing from municipal and county silos to regional and statewide thinking. Changing from zero-sum games to collective benefit. And changing from asking, where is my slice of the pie, to asking, how do we bake a bigger pie together? So to clarify, we don't have a joint position as a board on the pieces of legislation. So I'm making all these points as an individual member of the board, as a professional in the field, but more importantly, as a writer. By the way, today is my 24th anniversary of moving to Chicago and my 24th anniversary of taking the L for the first time. So I'm celebrating. And I want to end saying that in spite of all the controversies, the disappointments and the doomsday scenarios, I know that we can turn the tide. And I'm encouraged and inspired by how CTA is listening to understand and not listening to respond or to defend. And I have full faith that if we focus on shared values, it will get the system that we need. We'll fund it at the $1.5 billion it requires. So I look forward to working with this board, with the other boards, the writers, the advocates, the workers, business community, legislators, to keep growing the coalition that will make this happen.
Director Jakes.
What he said.
I know that's right. Yes.
Oh, that's it.
Director Eady.
Yeah, I think I'm going to ditto that. Yeah.
Okay. Director Lee.
Just another congratulations to the team. It was such a glory and for the community, but also for CTA. It's a shining example of why this city is great. And I really, echo all the sentiments that was said above, but like CTA is what makes Chicago a standout city in the nation. And so if we can't continue to fund it, we're going to lose a lot for our city. So I just hope we can continue to push forward and do it in a positive and accessible way and in a joyous way. So thank you. Thanks.
Director Ja.
No, I'm just going to echo what everybody else already said. Thank you.
Real quick, Director Raquel, who are those three that you said one more time? I want to make sure I lock those in. The three names.
Yeah, sure. Like the three things that I encourage everyone to keep reminding ourselves is that, and they are very important, but the most important one is the system that we want and deserve.
Right.
And then second to that is how do we pay for it? And the third one is how do we govern and lead it? And these were, I'm not coming up with these. These were agreed upon as the three main things years ago when the whole conversation started, because we knew this was going to happen. Like I said, it was not a surprise.
Right.
And so what I wanted to encourage ourselves is just to keep focusing those three and look at what values should drive the decisions there, and starting with what is that we need and deserve as a community, as writers, and then as workers, as a system.
Good. Thank you, Director.
Welcome.
Sorry.
No.
Chairman.
Our next item of business on the agenda was our ADA Advisory Board report, which was to be given by Laura Saltzman, Chair of the ADA Advisory Board.
Chairman Barclay, we've been advised that the ADA Advisory Committee will not be reporting out today.
Our next item of business on the agenda was a report by our Citizens Advisory Board, which will be given by Tanya Raby, the chair of the Citizens Advisory Board.
Good morning. Good morning. So I am Tanya Raby, the chair of the CTA Citizens Advisory Board. It's really good to see you guys. It's been a little while. I'd like to report on some of the activities that we've been doing. Specifically over the last couple of months, we've kind of decided that we would move to meeting on a more frequent basis. So we have been meeting on a monthly basis. So my report will cover from kind of some of the activities we've been doing since March. In March, we met. Most of the meetings, like I'll say this, most of our meetings have been focused on ridership goals for 2025 and also learning from several of the CTA teams about what activities the CTA staff is doing in regards to ridership. So the first presentation that we saw in March was about the CTA customer personas and trip journey mapping, which was really interesting to learn about. But we had a really great conversation about that. I'll just give a couple of highlights from that conversation. Just understanding like some of the key components to the overall rider experience, and how CTA can drill down and pay more attention to focusing on bus-only lanes so that trips for buses can be much more easier. We talked a lot about curb enforcement to make it easier for seniors and those with mobility challenges to make it easier for them to get to the bus stop and get on the buses. We also talked about some other issues that come up a lot about elimination of delivery trucks parked in bus-only lanes, concerns that would involve CDOT, like poor sidewalks and, just accessibility issues and challenges for getting onto the buses. We talked about wayfinding, creating a more universal system around that. And then a lot of these things that we talked about in March actually were addressed future meetings or discussed in a more in a space where we were, workshopping some of these things. We talked a lot about the Venture app and how to make some upgrades there, on specifically around synchronizing schedules, which a lot of those things were discussed earlier today. Molly Poppy and her team have been doing a lot to really help riders to better understand how buses are moving and, dealing with ghost buses and things of that nature. Next presentation we have on the Innovation Studio update. And so some of the questions that came out of that presentation were, kind of like thinking about AI technology and how that can help with detecting repeat offenses or things of that nature, but also being considerate of the fact that AI and the use of AI can be detrimental to communities, especially communities of color, where Black and Brown folks are a lot of times identified in negative ways. So we want to make sure that if AI is instituted in this way, that we're being conscious of those impacts. The third presentation was on the intergovernmental agreement between CTA and CDOT regarding bus lane enforcement and the Safe Streets pilot. And so we had a couple of questions regarding, this is more about discussion around the delivery truck issues and whether or not they will receive bigger fines, incorporating the needs of businesses who rely on these delivery trucks. So also kind of like thinking about, from the corridor perspective, these businesses that are impacted or need these deliveries to happen, like how do you work with the businesses to also make sure that their needs are being met while CTA's challenges are being addressed to make sure that the buses are able to move along in their lanes appropriately. And then the fourth item was the bus vision and strategic planning update. So we discussed about a lot of, we had conversations around IDOT and CDOT and how they were interacting in those spaces. Specifically, this is more like about the bus lane designations and better streets for buses and things of those items. Sorry, I'm trying to fly through it because there's a lot of comments. And then the fifth presentation on that day was about the CTA chatbot, which we all really, really appreciate. And we have used ourselves very much while we were on the system. So we're excited that that's becoming a much more robust tool for riders to use. In May, we talked about the CTA red purple modernization. So of course, all of the updates that Bill Mooney just shared just now, like we were learning kind of about where they were as they were finishing up all of that, which was really, really awesome to see. And then finally in June, we learned, we actually did not meet in June, we met in July. And we talked about, so Molly Poppy presented to us about the ebbs and flow of the frequent bus network, which she just shared with you all just earlier today. So we were, just very much involved in learning and really understanding a lot of the systems that are being put in place to better understand how riders are interacting with the system, which was really, really great to know. And we got some really good questions there as well. I will say that other items that the CAB is concerned about is, as it was mentioned here earlier, about community engagement. And we really want to be involved in a lot of the kind of, public opportunities to be involved with things. So we've had an opportunity to participate in the Bud Billiken Parade. So 2 members from the CAB participated in that, and that was Danielle Stanley and Peter Henderson. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, and I really wanted to, but I didn't get to this time. Hopefully next year. But we didn't know about some of the, or we didn't get invitations to the RPM celebration. So it would be nice if we could also be included in some of those events, just because they are very important to us. And would have been nice to receive a formal invitation to attend as a CAB. But those are pretty much our updates. I will also share that in May, we did join in with other transit advocacy groups to sign off on a letter to Mayor Johnson and Chairman Barclay in regards to the search for the CTA, for the new CTA president. We were just really, sharing this common concern around the hiring process. And we did engage in more deeper conversation around that. And just really being involved in the process around that. So we do hope that, as that process continues, that, we can be looped in and just make sure that that process is one that allows for a really robust search for the next president. And I think that is all that.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Any questions for Ms.
Director Ricao.
I guess just curious as to how can we move the connective issue between the agency and the committee. So not only for these technical things and things like invitations not coming through, but more the overall strategy of outreach to community, and also how to better involve the committee into the conversations on funding, et cetera, because our riders have the very first experience and the best possible, view of this. So just wondering how are these conversations going to bring all this under an umbrella where things connect better and we are able to truly represent or use your committee to what it should be, which is getting the voice of the riders out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have the answers to that. I know that we would love to have a better line of communication around events. And I know that events in the agency happen, like, I mean, they're kind of siloed, so it's harder to kind of, bring it all together into one source. But if there was an opportunity, for us to participate in public engagement activities, we want to at least have some notice. When you all get notice, we should get notice. If it's something that's appropriate for us to be part of, we should also just be notified and given the opportunity to join in.
Yeah, no, and I'm worried about this being a symptom of something bigger, right? Like, I think it's unfortunate, but for me, it's like, is this a symptom of not having a more comprehensive relationship and integration of this committee with the overall outreach and engagement team? Because if that is the case, we need to focus on that, not just so you don't miss another invitation, but also because we want you all to be at the forefront of all the advocacy that we need to do to get us the funding that we need.
Yeah, I would agree with you on, we want to be involved. There's members of our board that are, really, really eager to, dig deep and be supportive in those ways. Yet we've not quite figured out the best avenue to do that. So,
So I think, I don't want to speak, I know this committee is run by the board, so I don't want to speak for the board office on this, but I can speak from our perspective. I think we've done a good job of this content exchange, at meetings. You've gone through a lot of information that you're getting from staff and having good opportunity to comment on. I think what you're seeing probably here is, as I was saying, we have an unprecedented level of engagement we're building out right now. And we can do better and will do better of making sure you're involved in that. So we have some upcoming engagement around the security, around the budget. And so we'll make sure you're involved and part of that, and that we're working closely with the board office on coordinating that, because I know they coordinate your activities by and large, and that could also be part of the coordination that needs to take place as well. So definitely look forward to that. Really, I want to apologize for not getting an invitation to the RPM event. And we can do better on that, and we will. So thanks for raising it here.
Thanks, and thanks for looking at the root causes, because you heard it from Chairman Barkley, that community engagement is central for what we believe in as a board. And I keep seeing these kind of like misses, every time you go up. So can we get to the root cause here and make sure that's part of our partnerships and people priorities? We really bring you all together and reset a bit the relationship.
Absolutely. I think when you say to root cause, and something we're looking at as we build out our budget for next year, is we need to build out our team on community engagement and outreach, given the extent of what we want to do here at CTA now. And so I think it's getting more people that are thinking about what we might be missing and making sure we're getting everyone at events and involved that we need to, because we're doing more than ever, and having the staff to meet that. So that's a first step from where I sit to make sure we're building that out.
Director Jakes?
No.
Director Eady?
Just want to commend you and the entire committee for all that you're doing, and really appreciate it. But I guess also I was just wondering, is there anything more that you need from us to be better partners with you in the efforts?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. I think that we are really excited about a lot of the new things that are coming out of the agency. And we're really happy that we're, briefed on those items. I think it would be helpful if there was more opportunities for dialogue. We understand, though, there's a lot that goes into the, Open Meetings Act and all of the steps around that. But we do want to create space where, some of the concerns from the community can be elevated in a way that is, just better received. I think, we're out there, on the system. And I think that what we're seeing and experiencing and hearing from other folks that we, just talk to just in our daily commutes, I think it's important for us to, just have that direct line of communication. And I'm not really, you know, and forgive me, I don't know if this is appropriate to say at this moment, but basically, you know, the hierarchy of things, like what, you know, can we talk to you guys? Like what, you know, it's just kind of been a little, you know, just we're not quite sure, like, what can we say? What can we do? Who can we talk to? Who can we go to? And so just having a little bit more clarity around that. And the, you know, just the process for communicating those things would be very helpful. And then when we do have, you know, desires to, you know, be part of something or, you know, consider, you know, have some of our ideas considered beyond, you know, the space that we have within our meetings, like how do we, you know, lift that up?
Director Lee.
No further questions. Just thank you for your time and the rest of the board as well. Thanks.
Director Jha.
No questions, thank you.
Georgette, I'm sorry, I need to circle back based on something you said is when you became chair, was there a playbook by which you were given to, you know, this is what the Citizen Advisory Board is, these are people you contact, this is how often things are getting reported, this is who you should report it to?
So, I mean, of course, we have bylaws, we have, I don't know if we would have like a playbook per se.
It's almost football season for me, so.
I mean, we have, of course, we rely heavily on Georgette, who's been amazing, and she definitely is awesome in April. And, you know, everyone has been really helpful with making sure that we understand, you know, the legalities and then also just, you know, some of the structure. But I think that as we are, I'm not, you know, the previous CABs are probably different from us, I would say. Like we're more public facing. We have, you know, we're wanting to have a bit more agency in this space. And so I think that's where our challenges are, is just trying to figure out like how much can we push the boundary and how much can we, you know, lean into this opportunity to really make some change and encourage you all in a way that will help ridership across the city. So we are, you know, kind of in this gray area where there's an opportunity. I'm looking at it as an opportunity for us to kind of sit down and possibly, you know, really think about the future of CAB. And within that's another reason why we decided to move from meeting bi-monthly to meeting on a monthly basis so that we could have more touch points with each other and begin to kind of build that out. When we started this board on our appointments, the first year was really just us learning and downloading a lot. It was like a fire hose. We were getting so much information. We didn't have time to really discuss and just understand, you know, what our roles were at that point. It was just like just understanding how this agency works. And then once we got past that, it was still trying to, you know, figure out like how do we move together. And then our terms actually do. So we're still in place until, you know, new appointments are made or, you know, our members resign. But in that space, like, what are we doing is where we're trying to get at. And how can we be of support to this board and to our fellow riders in making sure that whatever communications need to be made, we're part of that. And so I think that's where we are right now. It's really just trying to make sure that we solidify what CAB is to CTA, what CAB is to riders across Chicago so that we can be a stronger voice and advocate. And now that we've gotten past the point of doing all of the learning, now it's time to do some action. And that's what we want to do.
I just want to add one thing, because I've sat in that position before. And when Chairman Peterson was sitting here and the door was open that he extended to me, and I'm extending that same door to you. Sometimes things are done at probably the chair to chair level two. And so I think I've sent you a letter, reached out about meeting.
Yes.
And so the door is open at any time to do that. So, but I want to thank you and commend you for your service. So, thank you very much. We've got to move on.
Okay, thank you. And I do know we were working on scheduling time to meet with you. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Our next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 9th, 2025. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved to approve the minutes from July 9th, 2025. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo? Yes. Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director James?
Abstain.
Director Eady?
Yes.
Director Lee? Yes. Director Ja?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 votes in the affirmative and 1 abstention.
Yes. Our next item on the agenda is executive session. Kent Ray, oh, Kent's not here. Spaker. Apologize, counsel. It's my understanding that we have an executive session today.
Chairman Barkley, session today pursuant to Illinois Section 2B1, 2, 11, and 21.
I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for reasons stated by counsel.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that the board will move into executive session for the reasons stated by counsel. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Eady?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Motion passes. is Director Ja. See her on Zoom. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
The motion passed.
That's to what?
The motion. Motion is from the motion.
Oh. Thank you. We will now address board agenda item 8, board matters. Georgette, do we have any board matters today?
Chairman Barclay, there are no board matters for today.
Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit and Budget. Director Jakes.
Mr. Chairman. Second. Committee met earlier this morning and approved the July 9th, 2025 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. Committee reviewed 3 ordinances. 1, review of an ordinance authorizing a second amendment to a concession lease agreement for basement space and adjacent property located at 4620 North Broadway in Chicago on the Red Line. Number 2, review of an ordinance consenting to the assignment and amendment of a ground lease at 1708 Benson Avenue in Evanston on the Purple Line. Number 3, review of an ordinance authorizing a lease between the authority and Ship Bob Inc. for property located at 120 North Racine Avenue in Chicago. Committee also reviewed 5 contracts. The committee placed the 3 ordinances and 5 contracts on the omnibus. Committee approved and recommended for board approval 3 ordinances and 5 contracts. Mr. Chairman, this concludes the report of the Finance, Audit and Budget Committee.
I will now entertain a motion to approve the omnibus.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that the omnibus be approved. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Eady,
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
Motion passes with 5 votes. I will note for the record that Director Ja, who was attending the meeting remotely, did have to leave the meeting and is no longer in attendance. But we still have a quorum with 5 members.
Our next order of business is a construction report. That is my understanding. We're deferring that till next month.
We would love to have a motion to defer this construction report, Chairman Barclay.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Ja, that the construction report, which was an agenda item, be deferred to next month. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay, Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Eady.
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Our final order of business is new business. Georgette, is there any new business?
Chairman Barclay, there is no new business.
Since there's no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the Chicago Transit Board meeting of August 13th, 2025?
So move.
It's been moved by Director Eady, seconded by Director Lee, that the Transit Board meeting for August 13th, 2025 be adjourned. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Rakeo,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Eady,
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay, the motion passes.
Meeting is adjourned.